Well, good evening and welcome to the final week 10 of the WTRL Zwift Racing League. Anna, it's been a sensational start so far. Well, start whole, and tonight is the finish. We do have a couple of tight battles at the top of the table, but what I want to know, Anna, is are you ready? Do you have your whiteboard ready? What is going to happen tonight?
I've taken my prep for tonight's last team time trial pretty seriously and talked to some sport physiologists, talked to some of the best TTT teams out there. That's a lot of T's. And have got a few things to talk about tonight, some top tips for those racing over the next few days. So stay tuned. There'll be a few little nuggets out there.
Well, it will all get decided tonight, of course, and we'll have some winners who are absolute grinners and going up to the Premier League, which is a very big incentive for all of the riders. Before we jump down and get a chance to run through all those theories of yours, Anna, and I'm very excited you've done the research, good on you, is let's take a look at these tables and see where the battles may lay tonight. So we'll start with the women's APAC Div A, and we've got quite a tight battle on our hands here. We've got the Aero Flyers and the Ace of Cakes tied at the top of the table, 171 points. Whoever takes the better time on the overall tonight will take that lead, so that win. So that's pretty exciting. Zed Sun in third on 163 points. The Devil Kittens in fourth on 158 points. The Fluffy Buns and the Bombshells in fifth and sixth, followed by the Hellfire Kittens, and in eighth we've got Cryogen Valletta.
And looking at the Division C, we've got AHDRL We Ate the Cake joint top position with TBR Smile on. So that's going to be one good tight battle to watch tonight. BRT Fiery Kittens in third, AHDRL Caffeines in fourth, the AHDRL Comets in fifth, and the Spin Mafia in sixth, with the Cruzettes in seventh. CMA Queen Bee in eighth with 110 and only 1 point back, Evo Flux, and then Herd of Echidnas rounding out in 10th position.
All right, let's head over to the men's division here, and we had a few fireworks last week with Relentless kind of half effectively pulling the pin, but we can delve into that when they're out on course. Team ZWC Attack, they are leading now, unassailable there on 175 points. Relentless, they have dropped back to 168 points. They're in second with Deepak. In third, it's quite a drop back. Those three teams have been very dominant throughout this series. In fourth, we've got the Evo Savages. In fifth place, the Aero Masters. In number six, we've got Wes number two. Number seven is Team ZWC Blast. The WTRL Pioneers are in eighth. Smoother Z Sun in ninth, and the Big Ring 54 tooth, that is a big ring, in 10th place there.
Mm-hmm. And looking at Division B, we've got the Big Ring 50T in first with 173. Aero Force, 171, 2 points back. So it could be something to watch there tonight. Evo Barbarians, a bit further back in third. Cryogen Etnas in fourth. Dirty Sprockets in fifth. 1 point behind them is Vision APAC in sixth. And then joint with them is AHDR Blowflies in seventh. Z Sundries in 8th, Velo Club Malo Sable presented by Cycling Tips in 9th, and MRRB rounding out in 10th.
I feel like some of these teams, Anna, are giving us crazy names just to challenge us. Well, game on. See you next series. See what they can come up
exactly.
with. In the Div C for the men, we've got the AHDR Chances. They are leading quite a comfortable margin on 174 points, ahead of the Big Ring 46 tooth on 168 points. I feel like maybe they need the 54 tooth of their teammates there to bump up a bit. TT1 Carbos, they are in third spot on 157 points. The AHDR Choppers in fourth. In fifth, we've got MRRC. In sixth, we have Cryogen LT'd. In seventh, we've got Cryogen Alto de Latras. In eighth, we've got the AHDR Chargers, the Big Ring 47 tooth. In ninth, and Cryogen Mount Hotham, we've got the Mountain Goats sitting in 10th on the table. And tonight is only 36k. In a team's time trial, that'll go pretty quickly. It's pretty much flat. I mean, they do go over Calder Saddle Springs. Isn't that kind of a fancy way of saying a tiny little climb in the middle of the desert? But how much do you think tonight will come down to team strategy versus just pure horsepower on this relatively flat and fast course?
That's a really good question, Katie. And I'm not entirely sure. I know talking with some of the best teams out there, like the Wahoo Finesse Chicks who've been really dominating in the TTT format, is they said it really all comes down to their director sportif or their DS who's in their ears. And I think it might depend on that a bit tonight. Those teams who have got that dedicated person who's not racing on the mic, telling them what order to be in, telling them when to push, keeping an eye on who's getting tired, maybe telling them when to drop off or skip a turn. So I think that may be the difference tonight. I do want to point out, though, there is an interesting part in the course when I recce'd it today that I think could cause some issues, and that's when they start going underwater and through those tunnels. It does actually roll. It sort of goes to -2, -3, flat, up a bit, down a bit. And I think everyone thinks it's a sort of a dead flat course, but that area really does roll, and people could start to split apart there, I think.
Well, it's a really good point, and I think even 1% uphill, which in the real world might be a false flat, but in the Zwift world, that elastic band actually breaks pretty quickly. Another thing that we saw in the last couple of weeks unfold, which has been pretty interesting, especially in the women's field, Anna, was that Aeroflyers and Ace of Cakes have had a few changes amongst their team due to, we talk about in real life racing, but due to real life issues of work and injuries and all sorts of things. And they haven't been able to field the same team that was dominant in the early parts of the series. So on paper, we really don't know between the Aeroflyers and the Ace of Cakes who might take that victory tonight. I mean, how stunning is it for the whole league that it has literally come down to the wire, to the last race?
I know, and I mean, it's hard. I've come to know these teams. I've come to know their team managers over this 10-week period, and they're such great people. And I almost just want them to be joint winners, but we can't have that. Someone's going to win today. And, the AHDRL team got in touch with me last week and the week before. They hadn't made much of a showing, but yeah, it was kids, it was real life work. These aren't professional athletes, they're out there working. And also some in real life racing that just, they can't race tonight and then race again tomorrow. So it's sort of it just shows you that these are just humans out there as well on their avatars. So it's going to be a tight battle between those two. And we saw also we'll see if she's racing tonight, Tanya Lordner going through chemotherapy, and she's in the Aero Flyers. So we'll just I mean, there's a lot going on in those teams, and I'm gunning for both of them.
Yeah, there's some really inspirational stories, aren't there? And I would encourage anybody watching to jump into the chat, to share some stories with us, to jump on social media and make sure you tag us in so that we can keep up with that, because it is really good to know the stories behind the faces. And as you mentioned, there's all sorts of things going on. From I heard one of the riders fell off and broke a couple of ribs. That's not going to help her Zwift racing. And I also know that in Australia, the in real life racing has resumed. So a lot of the Aussies are finding that balance a little bit tough. Let's jump over to talk about the men for a second, because last week we had a massive bombshell with a couple of the Relentless squad, four of them jumping ship, defecting essentially, and more or less handing the overall victory to Team ZWC APAC. Now, I have to say that it wasn't an open and shut case of handing the series to them. I think they were still very much in the game, and they are very deserved winners. But it's interesting, isn't it? And so this week is almost a procession lap of the TikTok course in Mortopia for the ZWC APAC team, because now they've got a lead that kind of can't be beaten.
And they almost can't be beaten in the team time trial format. Even when Relentless was at their absolute peak and their best, they still couldn't beat ZWC. So I think it doesn't, all credit to them. I even think if Relentless was here, they'd still be winning it. They're a very, very strong team of predominantly Japanese elite riders, and they're all very light. So this kind of course suits them well. There's not a lot of sort of problems they're going to have with downhills and splitting apart. They obviously can ride really, really well together. Their powers are very similar, so there's not anyone surging and dropping. And yeah, they just tend to ride extremely well.
Well, and another thing to consider is a lot of the Relentless squad, before they jump ship, were actually getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to get out on course, which is insane. I mean, incredible dedication from those guys. We do, of course, have a league that suits every different time zone, from America, East, West, Europe, and of course, APAC, but pretty good dedication for those guys to get 8 weeks through it, getting up literally in the middle of the morning.
Exactly. And I mean, they will be fielding a team, so they might still be pretty motivated tonight. They'll be up at 3, this group that they're left with, and why not just throw your whole head in the ring and go for it? It's you got nothing
Why
to
not give it
lose.
a good
And
old Christmas crack?
oh, exactly. And one team goes up to the Prem League, so just give it a shot. ZWC could have some technical issues and not be able to finish in the top 3. So who knows? It could all
And
get mixed up.
Exactly. And we do talk about the fact that for the most part, it's a lot more predictable in the Zwift world because you don't get flat tires, you don't get broken chains, you don't have wind and weather to combat. But what you do have is technical dropouts, you've got all that sort of thing to deal with. So there are still things that can crop up. And we have seen in weeks past, all of a sudden a rider has just disappeared only to reappear a little bit later when they've had a power drop. So hopefully none of the teams will face that. It would be really good if all of the teams could finish this community league on a high.
Exactly. I do just want to mention as well the C group here, AHDRL and TBR. So that's a C group women. They're joint top of the table on 172 points. So that's another little battle to watch tonight. Should be pretty interesting. TBR Smile On had a breakthrough performance a few weeks ago in the TTT. So we'll see if they can replicate that tonight and move ahead of AHDRL.
Well, we've got some pretty tight battles across the board. Let's jump down and see some pictures of the riders out on course, and we can go through some of the strategies that they may be employing. Anna, I know that you have literally broken down the art of team time trialing in the Zwift world into pieces, so some of that knowledge will come in handy tonight. So we're watching the women. We've got 5 riders here. We need to finish with 4. They will have 3 time checks out on course at the 10, 16 and 26 kilometre mark, 36k in total. So we'll get a bit of an idea along the way of how they're tracking. In terms of bikes tonight, Anna, a couple of Tron bikes, a couple of discs. What would be your choice?
Definitely not the Tron in a team time trial, just because there's a quirk with the Tron is that if you look at some point here in this image, you might see when you're out of the draft, you actually sit up when you're on a normal bike. When you're on a Tron, there's no movement of your body. You're always in that kind of drop position. So sometimes it's a bit tricky to tell if you're in that optimal draft position or not. So I would never really recommend going for a Tron on a team time trial. Also, with this course being so flat, you really can sacrifice, the lighter weight bike and just go for something a little bit heavier but more aero. But we don't know what level these Zwifters are on, so perhaps they're on a lower level but have ridden a lot of meters to get those Tron bikes. I mean, the perfect setup you see is probably just third wheel back there, disc wheel. Looks like the Zip, Superfly, about level 35 you have to be to get that. And it looks like that athlete might be a triathlete because she's rocking the Tri Academy orange and blue visor. I know I always give a few tips on how people are looking, but she's rocking the triathlon visor with mismatched yellow and red socks that don't really match anything on that kit setup. So not quite sure. She's picked the right bike, not sure about the accessory setup.
Well, it's interesting, and you are rather fond of that visor setup and the headband. And we're not seeing any aero helmets. Again, it might be a function of what level they're at. So to break that down for people who may just be beginners in the Zwift world, you earn equipment and access to equipment based on how much you ride. So even if you ride quite frequently but you haven't leveled up yet, you may not have access to those fast and zippy wheels. But we do know, kind of from looking straight away, that anybody with a Tron bike has spent that time in Zwift climbing, and generally we know they're good climbers, but I'm not sure how much that will help today. Calder Saddle Springs, it's only about 2%, Anna. We have talked about how little risers can make a big difference. Do you think that it could split a team at this stage in the league where we kind of assume that they've learnt how to work a bit more cohesively together?
I think Because we've actually ridden parts of this course already in other TTTs, slightly, it's not the TikTok, but it's different variants of it. I think people are aware of that. I've actually never heard it called that mountain before, so I've learned something new tonight. But I think people are very aware of that 3% grade, and it's kind of a nice sort of, it doesn't go 3 and then 4, 5, 6. It sort of just stays at the 3, and you can sort of push into it. So I think it's okay. I think I do just want to comment on Patrick Weir, who's mentioned something in our Facebook feed, which is he thinks tonight keeping the line will be important and having short changes at the front and a good use of a different rider's strengths. So I do want to touch on the conversation I had with the sport physiologist who said, and I mentioned it in the last TTT, and I actually saw it when I went in and stalker fan viewed the Wahoo Finesse chicks on the WTRL TTTs late last week, which is they were taking very short turns at the front, sort of I'd say 10 to 15 seconds, very high watts per kg though, sort of 5.5 to 6 watts per kg. And it meant that if they're going only for 15 seconds, they're not actually going into that lactate system. So they can drop back, sprint back on to catch up to the back of the group, but still not have burnt too many matches, but kept the momentum really high. So I think when we see our top teams like that ZWC, the Aero Flyers, we might see that strategy panning out tonight because this is a course that definitely suits that.
Yeah, there's certainly the case of gaining momentum, isn't there? When you do short, sharper turns, you pull off before you do too much work. But it is important, a big skill, Anna, that we had to learn again and again and drill ourselves both on the road and the track, doing any kind of team events, is that your turn isn't finished until you are safely in the slipstream. And so many, especially, beginners at this event, they'll do a big turn, they'll pull off, and the moment they pull off, they'll take the opportunity to take a bit of a deep breath and recover. But that's not particularly helpful because that is the most vulnerable time where they may end up getting dropped.
Yeah, and I think if people are watching from home, probably the key indicator of whether a team is performing well is you can see at the top the Ks per hour. We're on a 0% grade, so you can see this team here, the AHDRL Bombshells. They're riding 39k an hour, just up to 40 there. Keep an eye on that speed when they change leaders at the front. Now, if that speed drops at any point, they have not done that efficiently. So what our team does is we'll say off in 5. As soon as that front person says off in 5, which means 5 seconds, the rider number 2 starts bringing up their power. So it's an absolute smooth transition. The problem is if you change over and that person wasn't ready, they're really not going fast enough, and suddenly you're riding at 40 and then you're riding at 37 and the momentum has just massively dropped. So we'll see how this team goes now, and you just saw it drop from 41 to 39. So not a huge drop, but enough that it just kind of mixed up the momentum a little bit, and that's where the best cream of the cream teams just make all the gains.
And the way to keep it really smooth, one sort of trick that I learnt was that you never ever bomb through. And by bomb through, I mean when you hit the front, you don't accelerate, really increase the power and really increase the speed. You have to do that over a number of 100 meters to really build that speed up. And the idea as well is regardless of what your pre-agreed strategy is, when you get to the point, whether it's 10 seconds into your turn or 2 minutes into your turn if you're doing longer ones, that you start dropping speed, you get off the front. You kind of get the heck out of the way and you let the other teammates come through and keep that pace up. Because one of the hardest things to ever do is when you're getting tired, the speed might drop back 2 or 3 or 4 kilometers like we're seeing happen now, but they are going uphill. So that's a good indicator of whether it's the course doing it or the rider, is that it's really hard to constantly have to increase that speed back up. So the name of the game is coming through smoothly and then dropping off at your peak speed. As soon as you start to slow, you move off, you get a bit of recovery, and you allow the team to consistently move along at that faster pace. So about 40 is what we're seeing here for the fluffy buns. And they're looking pretty smooth, actually, Anna. I mean, each week they've turned up and they've been a pretty cohesive unit. So this doesn't surprise us, but it is good to see them committed all the way to the end.
Yeah, I mean, in the scratch race last week, they didn't feature in the top 5, but in the TTTs, they've been consistently placing in top 5. So obviously they work really well together as a unit. A bit unfortunate they've started with 4 riders. Just being that having that extra 2 there really does make a huge difference. And it means these guys are committed for the entire race. They can't drop anybody off. They've got to finish with these 4. And we do just see a team behind them. It looks like they're catching up. It's BRT here, who was 3rd in the last team time trial and 5th in the scratch race last week. So BRT must be the Devil Kittens. Now they're riding very well. You can see that speed, 42k an hour, and they're almost single file there compared to the team in front, which is sort of bunched together, which isn't ideal. And this angle is great. You can just see these guys are going to drill through. I love this part of the team time trial, though, is when one team passes another. One, because it can cause a bit of drama. It's where you see the most comments on the right-hand side of the screen, because you can get stuck in a sticky draft. The other team can jump on. You've got to love our drama. But it looks like the BRT team knows how to do it. They're pushing through, and they're hitting this 3% grade now. So it'll be interesting to see how well they stick together with Trin here on the front, Martin, Eldred, Ma. So looks like they've got, and McRae. You know Ange McRae a bit, don't you?
Yeah, look, she is super solid, and I've been really impressed through the series. She races in 2 of the community leagues. She races in APAC, but then she also backs up for America West, which is pretty impressive. I wouldn't be surprised if she's a bit zonked by this point in the series, but she continues to be strong, and it was only a couple of weeks ago that she was kind of throwing a bit of a cat amongst the pigeons in a few breakaways between the Aeroflyers and the Ace of Cake. So she's certainly got a lot of tenacity, and I can't wait to see her next season and see what she does over the summer, because, of course, it's summer here in Australia and New Zealand. Time for summer holidays.
She's just commenting there. We're just saying there might have been a bit of drama, but instead the AHDRL team said, great riding, BRT ladies, and Andrew Cray's going, thanks you guys. So no drama here in the women's race. It's all friendly as.
How terribly polite, isn't it? I mean, there is so etiquette in the overtake, isn't there, Anna? Generally the team that is being overtaken, it's recommended that they slow down a little bit and keep together in order to make it easy for the other team to get past. Would that be a fair description of how you should do it out on course?
Yeah, I mean, I think in real life that would be more the case. I think in Zwift, because of the sticky draft, you almost have to just take responsibility to up the pace and power through the team that you're riding through. Because if you just sort of ease off a little bit, it's so easy to get stuck in the draft of that team, and they'll be really trying to like drop back, but everyone gets stuck together. So I think the team that's going faster, just putting in a little bit more of an effort, and they'll be on Discord, they can tell each other that, and they just take responsibility to power through, which is what we saw BRT doing just before. And I'm really impressed actually watching this. They've just gone through that downhill section, which is very easy to become dislodged. And look at this, TikTok, boom, they're staying together.
Now, you've got a special playlist for this course, don't you? A TikTok time-inspired
I sure do.
Spotify playlist.
I'll try and share the Spotify playlist to our socials, and I'll try and weave in tonight as many lyrics as I can into this commentary, because TikTok is a great course with a lot of lyrics out there.
Yeah, I feel like anybody listening who thinks that's a bit random, just assume it's a lyric from a TikTok-themed song. I think that's the best way to do it tonight. We're looking at Zed's now. They've been pretty consistent the whole season. They're sitting in 3rd on the table. There's 6 of them. They've got a great cohesion going here, 11k into the 36k. They're going over the bridge at the moment. It is a bit tougher when you go through both the gravel sections and over these bridges, isn't it, Anna? Because you do require a little bit more power to hold that speed.
Yeah, the power just kind of fluctuates quite a bit. So they've done a really good job at staying, pretty well in a straight line. They are approaching this area that I said is very tricky. It doesn't seem tricky on paper, but when you're in there, it's actually quite hard to stay together. So what happens is they're coming into the ocean area. They drop down under the ocean, and just that drop, the heavier riders will move to the front very easily, and then suddenly it kind of rolls. And if you're off the back or sort of not quite paying attention, you could go off the front as well. So we know that Danette Shaw from her scratch racing is extremely strong. So she just has to be a bit careful here as we see her dropping back, that she just doesn't sort of dislodge any of her riders behind her.
I do love the rendering of these worlds, and I love it when you go under the ocean. We often see a lot of animals swimming alongside, but I do think that when you're out there, the effect of being underwater is a little bit discombobulating compared to staring at your avatar just going down a straight road. It might only be a tiny thing, but it's a massive mental game, isn't it, Anna? Because these team time trials, let's not beat around the bush, they're not very fun. They're horrible. It's almost one of the worst ways to spend 36 kilometres on your bike.
It is. I think because you're going so hard.
Does that describe it badly enough? I mean, do I need to use any more descriptive words?
Yeah, I find it's because you're trying to do so well for your team too. You don't want to be that rider who drops off. So you end up just pushing far beyond your limits. And it is, you're right. It's pretty brutal. It's not a super enjoyable course. So I just want to point out Christmas trees in Zwift. I don't know if you've noticed it. I saw it on my ride today. Such a beautiful festive feel out there. A few little trees just decorated with the Christmas baubles.
Yeah, and there's some ugly Christmas kit getting around too, which is a bit cool. And I must say that I think we'd both probably be in ugly Christmas sweaters were it not 30 plus degrees Celsius in the Southern Hemisphere right now. It's not exactly ugly sweater weather, but it is fun that the Zwift world has picked that up. I do like that. Nice and festive. I mean, 2020's been rubbish, so a little bit of festive cheer for the end of the year.
Katie, I do want to just interrupt you there because I think you'll be interested to know one of AHDRL's ring-ins tonight, someone called Michelle Ferris. Now, does that name ring a bell to you?
Oh, certainly does. What a legend she is. So she is an Olympic medalist, a silver medalist in the sprint in track cycling. She's a bit of an overall legend in the Australian cycling world. She certainly broke a lot of glass ceilings for women in the sport here and is widely revered. But, 200 metres was her kind of jam. So this is interesting to see that she's now crossed over into the Zwift world and team time trials. I mean, I feel like by the end of tonight, this is just a reminder of why she was a sprinter and not an endurance rider. She'll probably be like, yeah, I managed to win an Olympic medal for 200 metres worth of work. Why would you do 36K if you could do 200 metres?
Exactly. I'm actually just looking at her stats here on Zwift Power. So you're right. Her 15 second is 892 watts. But her 20-minute power is around 3.4 watts a kg. So she's actually a B category rider in Zwift, even though she is an Olympic silver medalist. So a great ring-in tonight. She might be one of those riders who heads out the front, does a bit of work, and then they sort of say, look, you've done your dash. You can drop off when you start, getting a bit too tired.
Well, that's really interesting to think about because I've got a bit of an alternate theory on that one. I think in a team's time trial, if everything's running fairly smoothly, you can actually get quite a good recovery when you drop to the back. If Michelle is only using 50% of the power that she has for, say, 20 seconds at a time or 30 seconds at a time, it's not going to fatigue her to sit at 400 watts like it fatigues others to sit at 400 watts for 20 seconds. So I think if she's able to get that recovery, she could actually be a bit of a secret weapon. And likewise, she could also, especially through the midsection, use her power and her ability to really accelerate, especially seated, to build the speed back up for the team. So I think if they use her differently than they use the other riders, then it could be a secret. And in that, and I'll throw this to you about your own team, I think that the most successful teams, time trial teams, are where each different rider is catered for in the strategy. So instead of saying we're all doing 20 seconds, we say you're doing 10 seconds, you're doing 40 seconds, you're doing 20 seconds, and the order in which they come through as well.
Oh, definitely, for sure. You have Your big power riders take longer turns. Your more hill climbers who can't put out the same raw wattage take shorter turns. But then what I've noticed is you just have to, and this is where a good DS comes to play, you have to watch how the riders are feeling, because someone may not always be 100% on the day and someone may be riding above and beyond. So you've kind of got to adjust as you go along and maybe shorten turns or lengthen them as they work through. I do want to just note we have gone through that 10K time check, and Ace of Cakes 14:18 compared to Aerofly's 14:46, and those are the two teams joint at the top of the table. So that's a bit of a deficit there, and we're just seeing we've got some of the next splits coming in, but that's a bit of a deficit for Aeroflyers to be catching up.
Yeah, well, look, the Ace of Cakes, they were probably dominant, more or less dominant in the early half of the season, but the Aeroflyers weren't too far behind. But this is kind of what we expected a couple of weeks ago from the Ace of Cakes, when they weren't able to put the same team on the track. And they had a young rider, a junior, come in who usually races in the lower categories. And she did an incredible job. And not only did she do an incredible job keeping up, but the team did an incredible job, Anna, of kind of herding her to the finish and making sure they finished as a 4. That impressed me. They didn't finish on the top of the table that week, but it really showed me that they have a really good culture where it's far more important to look after each other, field a team and get it done, than to simply go out and win. And I really respect that.
Oh, exactly. And I mean, they've turned up to the last race with an Olympic athlete. So they know when, and the message they sent me this week is they knew it will all come down to tonight. So they've obviously put a very, very strong team in tonight. They're not sort of having any of the, developing riders tonight. This is game on, this is where it all comes down to play. I was just distracted there when I was looking through Aero list. I can see Tanya Lordner from Aero is actually racing tonight. So she, as we mentioned before, she's actually a Masters National in both the individual time trial and the road race in 2019, podiumed at the Masters Nationals in Australia. But more impressively is going through chemotherapy. I mean, sometimes I find I struggle to get on the trainer because I'm a little bit tired. I mean, absolute props to Tanya Lordner that she's out here drilling a team time trial in the final race of the series, going for the win, and she's in the middle of chemo for breast cancer.
What an absolute inspiration. And I think, by our age, Anna, we know a lot of people who've had these horrible, disgusting cancer battles. And as you watch them push through that treatment and recovery, it gives you a lot of hope and inspiration for when you're on the trainer and you think you're doing it tough, but you're perfectly fine. The reality is maybe you just didn't get enough sleep last night. So I think watching ladies like Tanya really push it out there, and also Aero keeping her involved and keeping her part of the community. Once again, just like the Ace of Cakes, I think we're looking at a team with an incredible culture and a really good sense of community. So the winner in the overall standings for APAC, they will step up to Prem League. There is no playoff for the APAC League. But whether it's Aeroflyers, whether it's Ace of Cakes, both teams, I think, really deserve to get an exceptionally good result for all of the work that they've put in. And I, for one, am really excited to see how they develop in the years to come.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, I think what we've seen over these last 10 weeks is these teams really come together, and it's been great for me to sort of hear the stories behind the teammates. So, you've got Kim Garland competing in Ironman and triathlon since 2014, never raced cycling at all, and has represented Australia at 3 World Championships in handball, which we mentioned before, and she's got 2 young kids. So you've got all these stories from all these different riders here. Deborah Neal, long-distance triathlete, done 3 Ironmans as well as Kona, and the 70.3 World Champs in 2019. So this is a great team with some great sort of stories and backgrounds, and I just, like I said at the start of the show, I don't really know who I want to win. I just want both these guys and the Ace of Cakes to be top of the league. But we are seeing here that it does look like Ace of Cakes really has brought that A game. I mean, maybe they're motivated with Ferris in there, and maybe she's riding there with the Olympic rings and medals around her neck. But they've got a good minute gap now on the Aero Flyers and about 30 seconds on Z Sun. So Ace of Cakes definitely has brought their A game, and they look like they may be running away after the 16K time check. So not too long for them to go.
Yeah, how's that? Bring in a sneaky Olympic medalist for the final week and see how you go. And a shout out to the Zwift engineers. If you could please create Michelle Ferris an Olympic medal to hang around her neck, as long as it doesn't compromise her aerodynamic nature within the game. I just think that would be, props to her.
Yeah, exactly. I think that'd be awesome. I think anyone who rides on Zwift and has been to the Olympics or has an Olympic medal definitely needs some kind of special jersey. I think that would just be awesome, and especially because you could just, throw some chat out there when you see them riding around. That'd be you, right, Katie?
Yeah, well, I think sometimes I like to be a lot more anonymous than that when I'm putting out some terrible power numbers and multitasking. But yes, I think it is a real community, and I think that we've got some exceptional athletes on there. And it's really cool, actually, to kind of see how it extends or recreates their career into a whole nother level. So for Michelle, whether or not she's out there racing IRL, it's really awesome to see her loving this racing again. So the men are out on course. Let's just take a look at what's happening over there. They're only just out on course, though. We've got Milburn on street. They're looking pretty good. There's 6 riders. As far as I think, Hannah, that is already the first tick. To be in week 10 and to be able to front up with 6 riders on the start line, I think we're already knowing then that this team is committed to the cause. We've got some disc wheels. We've got some aero helmets. They certainly look the part. They need to perhaps iron out this formation. They're going for a bit more of the messy blob. Did that make your whiteboard, the messy blob?
What did I call it? Like organized chaos, I think it is.
Yeah, yeah, that's more articulate than messy blob, I think.
I think maybe what they're doing is they're only 1,500 meters into the race. So I think they probably just started out super fast, and it looks like this rider here is now sort of taking the lead, and they're forming into their sort of little formation. Like I said earlier, what is also key from some of the teams I've talked to is the fact that you need to know your order, and you need to always stick to that order. So no sort of messing around. I know our own team in the last one, our lead rider had a technical, and we were just an absolute mess for the first sort of 5 minutes of the race, because for some reason when our heart rate was high, we had no idea what we were doing and how to get back into an order. So, I think it's good to realize when these guys are racing at a really high heart rate, it is hard to make sort of split second decisions. You sort of can focus on only one thing. So that's why it's good to just, all you need to focus on is who you're following, and just make sure when they're coming off, you're taking the lead. Now, what I'd be interested to talk about a little bit with you, Katie, is what order do you go in? So this is sort of what I've looked at is you've got, say, a big power rider, you start off with them at the front, and then you kind of want someone to go next who maybe isn't quite as strong, but not so different that they can't actually hold that pace at all. And then the next person, if they're a slower rider, to go with them, and then maybe build up again. So almost like an inverse triangle of power. Am I going too deep here? Have I just spent too much time on my whiteboard?
Look, I think there's no doubt that you've nerded out as much as possible with the odd Zwift tactics in the whiteboard, but I love it. That's your thing. We'll go with it. I think that's a pretty good tactic. In fact, I think there's a few that work, but more importantly is the ones that absolutely do not work. And what absolutely does not work is putting your strongest rider directly behind your weakest rider. That's a mistake. I think sometimes people kind of stack it simply in order from first to second, third, fourth, fifth, so on and so forth down, and kind of build up the speed and try and do it like that. But the amount of damage that can get done to the weaker riders by the stronger riders having coming through, maybe accelerating through after them, it's not good. And it also kind of highlights the responsibility of the stronger riders to ease into their effort, because it may not be a good idea for the stronger riders to only do a short 20-second effort, but more than that, if they do bomb through, if they do accelerate through, it doesn't matter how strong they are, they can really ruin the team. And isn't it a bit of an interesting strategy to consider that, Anna? Because normally, before a scratch race, you'll say, okay, cool, here are our strong riders, you're the ones that will be attacking and so on and so forth. And you riders, you'll be looking after them. But when it comes to a team time trial, it's almost the opposite. The strong riders, they have to look after everybody and kind of really temper their effort. I think that psychologically, a lot of the really strong riders, especially the explosive ones, actually find that really tough to do. And I just have to say, and I've got something through on chat here about the name of this team. So they're called Race 3R Bowie. So it looks like this set of team are named after, and I'll paraphrase here, crap or good 80s pop bands. So for the vote, do we think that Bowie, which category does Bowie fall into?
Oh,
I'd go for
good. Definitely good. Definitely good.
Except, I don't know if you can hear the producer in our ear, Anna, but just for our Zwift community, Nathan is not a Bowie fan. I think we just found that out. Oh, sorry.
Apparently he is a Bowie fan.
Anna, I heard that wrong. And now the volume in my ear is going full on. Nathan, I'm very sorry. Let me rephrase that. To all of our Zwift community listening out there, Nathan is a big fan of Bowie and of Labyrinth. So,
the movie Labyrinth. You got to know that song. What is it, Katie? Dance, baby, dance. Baby, dance, baby, dance. Love it. Labyrinth, such a good movie.
Well, listen, the Race 3R Boys, we'll give them a thumbs up for that.
Oh, I love it. So this Team 3R, what are we thinking of sort of how they're rolling through? I feel they're down to sort of 39k an hour. I feel like they're sort of riding around slightly messy is what I'd say. Here they look really good, but I think before they sort of maybe had lost the sort of focus a little bit and it all pulled up together. It's now they look beautiful, I've got to say, and you can see that it's reflected in their speed, but not sure. I'm not sure how well they're going to do tonight against. I'm quite intrigued to see how our top team ZWC will go. If they are on the start list, though, I'm not sure I'm seeing if they are on the start list tonight, which would be a bit of an upset.
I would be very curious. Let's just take a look back at the women who are well further into their race. Ange McRae leading the way for the BRT ladies there. We've talked about how she's such a solid rider, such a good performer. I actually get the impression as well, Anna, that she's very good for the team, for keeping everybody pretty calm and pretty organised and pretty committed to the cause. I like that. I think every team needs an Ange McRae.
Oh, exactly. Everyone's got that sort of leader, right, who just brings everyone together. If we were listening to their Discord right now, I'm sure she'd be the one who's sitting there motivating everyone. If someone's struggling, just saying, come on, stick with it, you'll be fine, we're better as a team. And I do just actually want to see, I've seen a comment come through about actually the TBR team, but they've said, go TBR, smile on. They put the T in Tessin spirit. Win or lose, we finish together. Now, I think that's a good summation of the women's teams out here. Perhaps not the men's, such with a few of it fractured, but with the women's teams, I think they're all in there together. They all seem pretty free, and I definitely think the BRT team led by Ange McRae here encapsulates that feeling.
Well, so let's take a look at the power for a little bit. We've got a comment in here from Tina. Go TBR, smile on. They put the T in team, S in spirit. Win or lose, we finish together. I love that. That is just such good camaraderie. And I think that we need to remember this is a community league, and all of these people absolutely have incredibly busy real lives out there. They're balancing full-time jobs, family, health issues. So for them to commit to this is incredible. Now, let's take a look for a second at the heart rate and power from McRae, because at 143, 144 heart rate, she's cruising. She's not working too hard yet. She is sitting on. We can see that. If you see a power and you're not quite sure where the rider is, it's a bit of a giveaway when you look at their power. if it's under sort of 150, you know that they're not doing it too tough. But in the background, is that a team about to, or is that Z-Sun coming up on them, Anna? Because that's a pretty good ride from Z-Sun.
Yeah, Z-Sun is really good at this team time trial format, and you can just see 6 riders, I think, still. They'll be coming through pretty strong, 42k an hour. So that seems to be the magic number tonight to really be at the top of this field. And I think, yeah, they will come through the BRT team. So I'm just having a look at where they finished in the last team time trial. They were second place, so they were second behind Aero Flyers. But in the last 2 splits, they have been ahead of Aero Flyers and just off the pace of the AHDRL Ace of Cakes. So extremely good showing from Z-Sun. I think we mentioned them quite a bit last week in the scratch race with Danette, Shaw, and is it Schlesinger? They just had great races, and I think they may not be in contention to win, but I believe that they're really putting in this effort to show that next season, they're here to play ball.
Well, it looks like Daru is under pressure here. She's a couple of lengths back as they do approach the overtake here. She needs to be careful. They've got 6 riders out there, but splits can happen pretty quickly. As we say that, she makes a bit of an effort and ducks back onto that wheel, which calms me down a bit. I was getting a little bit panicked there and hoping that she didn't let that open up anymore. But of course, you get that warning up on screen, don't you? That's a little bit of a kick in the butt that tells you to watch out because you need to close that gap.
Yeah, and this could be an interesting pass because they're doing it uphill. And like we've seen before, these teams, as much as we want drama, there's not in this women's field. They all seem extremely friendly. And Z-Sun just needs to be careful here with about 3 riders just dropping off the pace there. Zollberg and Schlesinger are a little bit behind, and they could get stuck in the BRT train, which would not be good for them. So you can see Ebert here. She's pushing through. She's made it through okay. Mars behind. Shaw is coming through as well, but as you can see, those watts per kg, all those riders are having to really push, and these guys have fractured, unfortunately, going up this climb, which will hurt them in their chase of the Ace of Cakes. So you can see massive watts having to be pushed through to just catch on to the wheels of that lead rider, and then they go straight into a winding downhill, and this is danger time for them, really. They've been caught up. You can see Zollberg already 3 seconds back, and that might have to be a tough call to say, you're out. It's too far. We've got to keep this train moving, and they may be just down to 5 riders now, it looks like.
Well, I think that we have seen a pretty textbook over, even though a few gaps opened up. Ebert definitely accelerated past, and Danette Shaw got a little bit stuck, but that didn't last for long, and they have opened that gap fairly substantially now. Z-Sun are definitely moving in pretty good pace, and I would say that so far they've been week after week probably one of the teams who have shown the most consistency and cohesion as a crew, and also I've got to give them very good style points for their kit, and it's also very Christmassy with the rednecks, so style points for them. Do they get extra overall points, do you think, if they turn up in good kit?
I mean, I'm going to have to talk to Martin at WTRL, but I almost want to give out bonus points for just impeccably put together outfits. You've got to look at what you're wearing in Zwift. You watch this avatar so much when you're sitting there training, and you want to look pretty slick out there. But this team's looking good. I like it. Good little mix. I've just seen a note there from Ange McRae. Come on, drop back. So she's saying to the Z-Sun rider Zollberg, get out of here. She's sticking around the BRT crew. I think she's saying, you dropped off your bunch, get out. And that's just Ange McRae showing her leadership.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty bad etiquette to get caught up in somebody else's train in a team's time trial. We can give them benefit of the doubt because sometimes you do get stuck in that draft and you're not quite sure what to do with it. But we can see them now. We've seen the Z-Sun rider. She has, in fact, gotten out of there, which is good. Now we've got some... Let's take a look at these split times at the 26K mark. That's a really solid lead for the Ace of Cakes. They're over 30 seconds up on Z-Sun and then back again to the Aero Flyers. So as a virtual on the road, it looks like Ace of Cakes will take the overall win, not just today, but for the series. So I think as they're in this final 10K now, they've got nothing to lose. All they need to do is get to the finish in the kind of form they've been showing so far. And can you see that message now again, Anna, from Ange McRae? So much. She is so polite. She's almost like, like, get out of our way. Thank you. Like, I really like it. I think it's I like it. And I also like the fact that in the middle of a team's time trial, where they're going pretty well and clipping along over 40k an hour, that she can type. Like, she's got the headspace not just to type but to be polite. I think that's quite
look at that heart rate though. Like you said, she's cruising 154. I mean, that's like an endurance sort of aerobic set. You know, she's not. I think she knows she's probably the stronger one in the team, and you can see her pushing off the front here with that great Superfly wheel on, which is so fast with the Specialized S-Work. So she's got the fastest rig you can get riding that in game, and she's taking all the benefits she can. And 153. So she's just kind of rolling through tonight. She's having a great old time.
Well, here's a controversial one. I think that for the most part, unless it is absolutely down to the wire, which it hasn't necessarily been in the team time trials thus far, I would take style points for the headgear over the aero helmet. What's your take on that? I feel like you're not an aero helmet girl, but you're more of a sweatband or visor kind of girl.
Yeah, definitely I rock a sweatband. You have Jane Fonda in game, that's my name. But I just, the aero helmet.
Hold on, if something I have from Zwift, please change Anna's avatar to Jane Fonda. And a leotard and a leg and leg warmers would be great.
Exactly. I just almost have PTSD from copious amounts of triathlon racing wearing aero helmets, and so I just can't face my avatar wearing one in game. I almost just think that's.
Right, Anna? You're not doing that, are you?
Oh no, I've got to look exactly the same on the trainer as I do in game. So if I've got a sweatband on all the time, I have a sweatband in game. If I'm going to wear an aero helmet in game, I've got to wear it on the trainer. So, call me crazy, but I just can't wear that in game and in my basement.
Excellent. Well, that's a visual for everybody who's ever watching you in Zwift. They can kind of know that that is an exact replica of what's going on in your pain cave. Michelle Ferris now, she has been pulled in from the Ace of Cakes. Look at her. She's rocking the avatars on her avatar and no helmet there. She is done for the day, but what a good job to get this far into it so far. And Ace of Cakes have a very handy lead. I do think that she was the secret weapon today, Anna. I think they brought her in. They gave her a really clear job for perhaps 20-25 kilometres, and it seems to have paid off.
Although I just think that they might have dropped 2 riders, so they might be down to 4 riders now, the AHDRL Ace of Cakes. And if you do look at those splits, 36.52 up to the 26k mark, and that's about 10ish k from there. And yeah, they've still got a good lead. Yeah, they've still got about 30 seconds on Z-Sun. So, yeah, they're probably not having to worry too much now. And we can see Zolberg from Z-Sun has dropped 2. But, yeah, there we see the Ace of Cakes down to 4 riders. So the strategy I did think at the start is they did ring in a Olympic medalist to take them through the first lap. And looks like she did her job superbly.
I mean, we can look at where they are compared to Z-Sun, but most relevant for the overall series and that step up is actually where they are compared to the Aeroflyers, right? Because that is where they are both tied at the top of the table on 171 points. So as long as Ace of Cakes beat the Aeroflyers, I think that's all we need to see tonight. In saying that, I think they're pushing all the way to the finish line. It's not enough for them just to win the series. They also want to take out tonight Kim Hurst there, 173 heart rate. That is certainly pushing toward a threshold effort. And of course, your threshold is the heart rate and the power that, in theory, you can hold for a consistent period of time without kind of tipping over into that explosion, leg, lung explosion category. But let's hedge that, Anna, because we've all had those days where we get on the bike and we kind of try and sit at a power we know we should be able to, and it is just not happening. So, we've got to take these numbers sometimes with a grain of salt because we're not exactly sure how the riders are feeling. But the Ace of Cakes, even with 4, I think they're doing a pretty sensational job of keeping the speed pretty high, up toward 40k an hour while going slightly uphill. It's fair to say that they've got pretty good legs today.
Yeah, I've actually just seen a comment come through on the YouTube socials, which was a very good point. So I said before that I matched what I was doing in my basement to my avatar, but I do have a wheel off trainer. So they're saying, what do I do there? Do I just, take the wheel off the back while I'm racing? Or if I'm racing a disc, do I chuck a disc wheel on the trainer? So, I mean, it is extremely good questions. I haven't really thought it through completely, Victor. So I'm usually just going sort of outfit choice, but you've got a good point. I mean, I do run like a Zip 808 training wheel on the front just because mentally I think it's faster. I mean, I know that front wheel doesn't move while it's on the trainer, but I look down and think, yeah, it's game time. That's going fast. So, I mean, I think I'm
Anna, that people are actually really listening carefully to what we say. I think that's a win for us tonight.
Yeah, I feel like with the whiteboarding and now me giving a little bit of insight into how I race on Zwift, that I'm coming across all types of crazy. But, there we go. I'll let people make up their own mind.
Well, I've made the mistake on the trainer of leaving it on there and wiping it down, but really not attending to it otherwise. And after time losing the air in your front wheel. And I've gotten on my bike to ride, gotten out of my seat up a climb and felt like I was about to throw myself off because the front wheel is all squishy. So you can't set and forget on a trainer. You need to keep on top of that.
Exactly. And if people want some really interesting images, go to a search of the Zwift Riders Facebook page where a while back people were showing what happened when they took their handlebar tape off their bikes after like a winter of training. And let's just say that sweat and carbon does not always the best combination make. And there were some interesting pictures of complete disintegrations of head units. So there we go.
I feel like that is just congealed mess right there. So it's another one. You've got to use a towel. I always say to the ladies on my bunch ride, make sure you put the towel over the head stem as well, not just where your hands are sitting, because it's actually the head stem that's kind of directly in line for the sweat. And let's talk about fans for a second. As they're riding into the finish, we'll cover them as they cross the line. But I noticed on the World Championship feed last week, the first time they've had an esports cycling World Championship, which was super cool, that some of the riders had like double and triple fan setups. That seems very controversial to me.
I would say that's a good call. You'd want, if you were racing real seriously, like you would be obviously in a World Champs, yeah, fan on the front, fan behind, fan on the side. Like you just want to be so cooled down. A few times I'll do a training set with no fans and I'll close all the windows and doors and just get sort of the heat metabolic benefits from the training session. But when you're racing, you just want to be as cool as possible. And what I have seen with, is it No Pins, they sort of do indoor training gear, you can actually now put ice packs into your indoor training clothes. So there's some really awesome indoor training specific stuff that's coming out, and I love the idea of chucking some ice packs in there for a race, because I don't know what Aussie's like at the moment, but New Zealand's about 100% humidity and it's not comfortable for racing. As we're watching Z Sun though now coming across the line, look like they have rounded out in second place, and BRT looks like they'll probably roll in for fourth just behind the Aero Flyers.
So they've been pretty high speeds out on course today, only just over the 50-minute mark for 36k. It's pretty impressive. They're coming under the finish arch. Now, even if on the main screen you can't see that, we can see it on that top right of screen. Of course, you can track their progress there. So they just went through the finish line. They can be exhausted now and be quite proud of the effort they've put in, not just tonight, but in the previous 9 weeks that has made this community league such a cracker. Zed Sun have turned up on form for every team's time trial, and they're certainly one to watch for the future, I think, as well. We've got the Bombshells, the AHDRL, and that is Australian Hump Day Ride Ladies. The Bombshells, they've got a lot of teams out there. AHDRL, of course, Ace of Cakes being on the top of the table. So I think this is another example, Anna, of a really good development path for these athletes. So some of the riders in the Fluffy Buns or the Bombshells, if they continue to improve, they might move up to the Ace of Cakes. And we saw Michelle Ferris was actually, I think she was a Bombshell. She may have been a Fluffy Bun. That sounds quite funny to say, doesn't it? May have been a Fluffy Bun. But she came from one of those essentially feeder teams. And it's pretty cool to see a local community like the AHDRL community in Australia really develop that talent through.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually what we're doing with our own team, which is, we have a team in the Prem division, but then we have a sort of community team racing in this league, and it's just where you sort of find some talent coming up. You can move people around a bit more, sort of experiment. There's just not as much on the line, so it can make for some really exciting racing and an exciting way to see different sort of riders coming up. And even over this 10-week period, you've got a lot of riders who are racing more than they ever would have on Zwift, and with that comes a lot of fitness gains, and they're already moving up from the B cat to the A cat, or from the C cat to the B cat. So we'll see a lot of shuffling around before the next league starts, which is mid-Jan next year, and I think that's going to be exciting in this APAC division. We'll see just a bit of mix up at the top. It looks like it will probably be between the Aero Flyers and Zed Sun, with AHDRL looking like they'll take out the league tonight. So, yeah, I'm excited.
And I think it is an opportunity for the riders to take a physical break, a mental break, and come back and kind of regroup for the next season. All of the teams have made pretty impressive gains so far. And I think even if physically they take a bit of a break over Christmas, which is good for the body and the mind, that they've come so far in terms of learning Zwift strategy, learning each other and how to ride well together, that I think they will come to the next season really well prepared regardless. So both teams are coming into the finish here now. The Aero Flyers, they were tied neck and neck on the top of the table with the Ace of Cakes at the beginning of the day. They finish with 5 riders to their now. They have been just a top performer in this season, Anna, and certainly one of the teams that we've watched and chased throughout. We're just waiting for the Ace of Cakes to finish now so that we can see how it all came out in the wash. But there were a couple of tight ones. We're looking at the C now.
Oh my gosh! Have you seen this, Katie? This is 1 second. And whoever wins this...
exactly. Whoever gets it. So 10K left to go, only 1 second. It does look like that We Ate the Cake went out a little bit harder and it perhaps fading a bit. TBR Smile On really picking up the pace and bringing it home.
This is amazing.
This is about as exciting as it gets.
Oh,
so look at that. The top of the table,
joint at the top. That's amazing. Oh, you got to say, like, TikTok on the clock. This party don't stop with these two teams. This is amazing.
All right. Well, thank you, Kesha, for dropping into the Zwift commentary.
No problems.
All right. So We Ate the Cake. They are very near the finish now. They are at the top of the table, and they are 1 second faster at that 26K mark. And there's still 6 riders. So they've obviously been working really well together. They're a little bit strung out coming into the finish. That's not a problem. I think they are just pushing so hard because they know they need to. TBR Smile On. She is great. Monique, she rides with the Chicks Who Ride Bikes group, and she always takes care of the Zippy group at the front and kind of herds. We call her the queen bee of the Zippies. And she is great for the community, and I know that she just loves being out there, has such a great attitude. I'm really happy to see such a big competition on here. Now they are down
got Christmas jerseys on.
I think they do.
I think they've all got Christmas jerseys on.
Yes, they
hands
do.
down. This crew is getting the Best Outfit of the Day award. Look, they've almost all got the identical bikes. They're all in Christmas attire. This is absolutely fantastic to see TBR really turning it on for this last race. And I think those Christmas jerseys is what has set them apart. In tonight's race with AHDRL We Ate the Cake, they're 1 second off. I think that'll push them to 1 second ahead.
Well, regardless of the outcome, I think we can give them certainly very big props for turning up as a team in spirit. So they get our Christmas award tonight. They've done a really good job of dressing the part, which is impressive. And also for Zwift for allowing people to have ugly Christmas sweaters, I think is a good way to end a rubbish year. So they finished now. Oh, We Ate the Cake. They are
they're very close.
Sprinting into the finish now. I feel like We Ate the Cake might have made up a little bit of time here at the finish, but look at them. They are not expecting anything other than having to push for a very tight finish. So we'll see those results when we can. But how incredible that after 26 kilometres, only a single second was between them. So very impressive. We've got the donuts here are coming in. I love all the AHDRL names. I think they maybe got a whiteboard out just like yours, Anna, when they named all their teams.
I think so.
Put a few up there.
That was TBR, you do rock. Thanks for that, Tina. You've been watching today, as you have quite a few of our feeds. So I think you're a bit of a TBR fangirl, so absolutely loving it. We are watching Evo here, but that was quite a battle at the top, but it does look like AHDRL has taken it out over TBR Smile on such a tight battle, and that means that AHDRL potentially moves up as well in this league. So AHDRL has performed extremely well in the APAC division in both the A and the C categories. So very, very impressive racing all around from that wider group, the Australian Hump Day Ride League.
It has been good to see so many teams commit fully to the season, but also race all the way to the end. I just think next season's going to be a cracker. You know, I think some teams might rejig and change a few team members because we have seen a couple jump around teams and rejig a little bit. So that might bring a little bit of excitement for the next season. We've got a bit of camo happening here. This is a pretty well-dressed team too, Anna.
Oh, I like this. This is a quite the camo get-up. I mean, you can barely see them out there with that camouflage on. But they do have the lit-up bikes, so that's pretty good. And we've got the old-school newsboy hat, which I always like as a bit of a throwback. And, another AHDL team, Spin Mafia. They're looking great coming into the finish. And 5 riders. Looks like they're just sprinting on in, and beautiful use of Tron bikes. I mean, it's always not my pick for a team time trial, but they look cool. I mean, and that's almost more important, isn't it?
Yeah, well, and I think that it really depends if it's going to come down to a second, like with We Ate the Cake and TBR Smile on, then absolutely every single part of the get-up counts. But some of these other teams, I think that isn't what will make the difference, and so they choose to have a little bit more fun out there as well. So we've got the CMA, I think that's a Cycling Mums Australia Queen Bee
awesome
team, and they are a group of ladies who, as their name would suggest, are all mums, and they kind of get together and help encourage each other through what you and I both know, Anna, can be some testing times as you delve into motherhood. So good on them for forming that community.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I've got to say, like, when you've a bit tight on time and it's pretty hard with the kids asleep, Zwift has been quite a godsend for me, at least. You can jump on and do a great 45-minute smash fest while there's a sleeping baby next to you, because it turns out the sound of a wind trainer is amazing white noise.
Isn't that just such a godsend? I agree with that. So we've head over to the men's division now. We've got a couple of time checks in here. Team ZWC Attack, they are on the top so far at that 16K mark, which is just shy of halfway. Evo Savages, the next, and Relentless APAC in 4th. So we will get back to see them out on course soon. But we've got Cryogen at the moment. They're 24 kilometres in, so not too far off hitting that 26K time check. They've got 5 riders left. So if they started with 6, but there is a team In the background, we'll have to see whether they're about to make the overtake or whether they've just been overtaken. But we've seen that happen a few times so far this evening. Zed Sun for the men, they've got that same very obvious kit, which is quite cool. It's nice to have your own kit in game. And Zed Sun in the women's, we saw them do a great overtake of BRT. Ange McRae, of course, the BRT rider, very polite in her assessment of how that
It
all
looks
went.
like Julian
So let's see.
Alaphilippe, or is that just me? Sorry.
It
Does
does.
that look
I think
like...
he probably fashioned that. Yeah, he does.
Ah, love it. We've got Julian out joining us. I do want to make a special note of Evo Savages as well, who at the moment placed second after the 16K time check. The best place they've had so far is, I think, around fifth. So they're doing really, really well tonight to be only sort of 20 seconds off Team ZWC at that 16K time check. So extremely good performance from the Evo Savages.
Anna, have we got Santa on screen now? Is that what we're seeing?
I love this. I just think people are turning up with some of the best/worst sort of avatar picks here. But this, I mean, I love Santa out riding on Zwift. I mean, why not? You know, he's got to get around all these houses. He may as well get a bit of activity in beforehand, get fit for all those deliveries.
Yeah, exactly. He needs a pretty high VO2 in order to get through that. Goyini, style points to you tonight. It's a little bit of a retro kit night for them with the gloves, shoes, jersey match. And hair. I think he's got a ponytail too. So there you go. No, Santa I've seen has a ponytail, but why not? Cornrows for Santa. Yeah, exactly. Oh, heavens.
That is quite the get up. I love it. Goyini, you have really gone above and beyond on this Christmas themed almost last race of the series.
Yeah. Well, I think Peter Z are pretty heavy on the socials. I know that they're big on the Twitch channel. I've got to say I'm possibly not cool enough to even fully understand Twitch yet, but I know a lot of our fans are big on that platform. So get on it because it's really interesting to watch these guys racing. A couple of weeks ago, Anna, Dave Toll and I in the America West, we actually had one of the team cars call in. And so we got to hear the instructions that were coming from the team car to the riders. It was interesting because we heard two different approaches. One of them was very militant, very kind of commando-like of telling the riders exactly what to do. It was like swing, move, 5, 4, 3, a real countdown. And the other one was more encouraging and just chatting, almost like you're looking great, you're doing good, keep it up. Really different approaches. Which do you think that your team would prefer, the Saris Pros Closet team? Do you think you'd like someone kind of barking instructions, or would you like a bit more love and cuddles in the old earpiece?
Oof. I reckon a bit of a mix of both. I think you need just, we've had a lot of stuff going through our Discord. We had, one of the riders have some goats who went loose in her yard. And so the channel was really filled up with a lot of goats noise. So that was really distracting. So I think you really want to keep the Discord channel as clean as possible.
You were serious.
I know. I mean, it was a bit random. I think you want it clean and concise and to the point, So you want, go, you're off, next turn, and then maybe throw in a couple of you're looking great, push, amazing, and then at the end, just screaming your head off, sprint, 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 sprint. So I think that's what I would prefer. That's what I'm doing my first director sportif role tomorrow to see if I can put all of this into play. I realized trying to do that and race at the same time was becoming a little bit tricky. So I'll try some tomorrow and I'll let you know. But I think clear and concise, because if you're chit-chatting away, it can just get, a little bit irritating if your heart rate's up around 170 and you just sort of want silence and instruction. But interesting, Katie, which team did better?
I think it was the ones that were more organised, definitely with the instructional. I mean, I do see the merit of both, definitely. But I also see that sometimes you just want to turn off mentally when you're riding. You don't really want to have to think about much except breaking it, pulling it back to do this, do that ride. For example, the team we're watching on screen at the moment, we've got the Evo team. They're not in great shape. This is not what we want to see. We don't want to see big gaps opening up. And you need the person kind of guiding the team, whether it's one of the riders out on course or a separate team manager. But we can see them chatting actually there. Easy over
They
the
must have
brim. I've
Discord
never heard
issues.
feel called a brim,
Yeah,
but there we go. There's some terminology for us. But it is really important in those kind of moments you don't have time in that moment for something fluffy. You
no.
only have time to say, easy over the brim, please slow down, coming back, easy on. I think sometimes you can strip the emotion out of it and just make it very clear and concise and have time before and after to debrief about performances.
Yeah, I mean, I think this team doesn't have a Discord channel because it looks like Ben may be the leader here, and he's putting down actual written instructions, which is not ideal. What I do notice they've done though is they've put their team order before their name. So Ben is 1, Dave is 4, Ryo is 3, and it looks like W Kong has forgotten to put a number. Which is always a little
So we can
tricky.
assume that that's,
Say it.
I guess, number
Um,
2, given there's 4 of them.
Has that Paul Buckland, has he got a goat next to him in that comment that he's put up? Because that would be very, very ironic, as I was talking
Right?
about goats, and one of our listeners has a goat. If he does have a goat, what I'd like to know is what sound do they actually make? Because to me, it just sounded kind of like sheep almost, but maybe he knows a little bit better, Paul. So if you know the sound that a goat actually makes. But yeah, this
There's got to be a
Evo
technical term
team.
for this, sound a goat makes. That would be our takeout
um,
for tonight, if anybody can help us there.
and this Savages team, they've got a lot of fans out there. So maybe they can fill us in a little bit why they're sending text messages on screen. Oh, looks like Ben is now riding number 3. So he's actually, so this is where I think things could go a bit wrong for them. He's putting 3 there, which I assume is meaning Kong, who doesn't have the number. Oh no, Ryo's got 3. So I think Kong must be 2, even though he doesn't have the number. And Ben is putting out who is leading. So he's saying 3, and then he'll put out the next number. I mean, it's not really ideal or efficient. Particularly as they've got their numbers on their names, you'd hope that that would, make a little bit of sense in game to follow that number order.
Oh, it kind of hurts my head even trying to figure out what's going on with the numbers. But nice theory. And I will say that I think that the Community League has been a really great space for teams to try different things out. And especially, so our comment here, Savages is a
Yeah, that
mix
makes
of
sense.
nations. Not everyone can speak fluent English. Some on Discord, some on not. So kudos to them for finding a way to communicate with those barriers up. It's easy for
Yeah.
us to say, that's not ideal, but given the circumstances. So thanks very much, Michael Young, for pointing that out, because that is, as it turns out, this might be really the best way that they've tried, that they managed to do it. Shout out to number 1 there, Ben, with his retro headband on. He's channeling his inner Anna.
Oh, he looks like Jane Fonda. It looks amazing with the ski glasses. Retro as. I'm loving that look. And but I do like what he's doing here because Ben, I don't know if they've got a lot of supporters out there. So if someone could tell us a bit about this Ben rider in number 1. He's obviously the team leader and he's figured out something that's going to work. A little bit of angst going on here with ZWC. I won't actually read that out loud, but what the something are you doing? So they're getting a little bit feisty with someone. Can't quite see who. Yeah, so just a word to the Zwifters out there. Try not to keep it kid friendly out there when you're riding on Zwift. And yeah, they're obviously,
Yes,
I mean, they're well ahead.
Fiddlesticks.
Yeah, they're 40 seconds ahead. I mean, just chill. You'll be all right. I'm sure it's not that bad. And I can't actually
It's
see
a bit of an
really what's
indicator,
going
though,
on there. Maybe
isn't it? That I mean, they're taking this pretty seriously, aren't they? It's easy for us to say, "Oh, they've got it in the bag. They're looking good tonight. They're looking good overall," but they take it really seriously.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on that you can hear behind the scenes. Just try not to put it in game. But I think what he's getting a little bit frustrated with was the PNX rider, Hazel. And I do have to wonder what's going on there because Hazel is well ahead of his teammates. He's only 8 seconds back from ZWC, so he got caught up in the ZWC team. And I just wonder actually if Beatson is in ZWC as well. So maybe Beatson and
Mhm.
Hazel are. So he's Beatson is a PNX rider, so that's warranted. Like, get out, like get off the back of ZWC, and you've left your whole team behind, who are now 15 seconds back. So, I'm not sure what PNX is sort of playing at here, but they've sort of mucking up ZWC and they're mucking up their own race. So, not ideal strategies there from that team.
No, it does look like they got themselves in a bit of mess there, but thankfully it's sorted out now, and they can all get back to their business. PNX, they need to regroup a bit and just respect each other's abilities and capacities, and make sure they're not bombing through it all or letting those gaps open up. Even the smallest of gap can create absolute chaos. ZWC, they have 4 kilometres left to run. TIKD, he has been really sensational through this series, as
Hmm.
has Tanaka. And I think this Japanese team, for the most part, we do have Monrich in there, of course, the Aussie. And what a highlight of the series, Anna, was when Monrich took a bit of a flyer, almost faking everybody out in the sprint for ZWC to take the win. I think that strategically, they have just been phenomenal this season, and they do
Oh, did
definitely
you see that?
deserve to go straight up. Was that a wave? How did we get a
I
high
think he's
five
listening
there?
to you, Katie. I think he just listened to that and went,
Oh,
cheers, put his hand up, thanks.
cheers,
Aw, that's
love
so
it. Well,
lovely.
if that was real, then I'm impressed with that. And also, somebody tell me how to do that. I don't know how to do that in game, but I'd like to know.
On your companion app, have it open, then there's a little wavy button at the bottom. You can also put out an elbow,
Oh,
and you can
cool.
also push a button that looks like a piece of toast, and I think it says I'm toast in game. So there we go. There's a few
Oh,
other little tricks you can play.
I like that. That's it's kind of like an emoji language, where instead of having to type, we can just manage to put up a piece of toast. I think I might translate that into text. Actually, that's pretty good. So we're watching Monrich at the moment. He's rocking a pretty cool kind of retro hipster beard there. Do you think that the retro hipster beard takes away from the advantage of the aero helmet? I don't know. I'm sure the in-game designers aren't that cruel.
I would love that though if there was like a 0.5% draft reduction due to having a beard, aero reduction due to having a beard. That would just be phenomenal if it went to that degree of detail. Who knows? Maybe it does. But it looks like Monrich is working through the beard situation and, you know, doing pretty well. I think he's going to get our Christmas points as well because I believe that is an ugly Christmas sweater he's rocking.
That he's accessorised with matching green socks.
Oh,
So
it's
Mon
amazing.
Rich for the Christmas week there.
I'm
You're
loving it.
impressed.
I mean, I
I,
don't know
I
if he can.
expect the
I don't know if he can beat Santa. That's the only thing.
well, this is true. And considering your affection for Jane Fonda, Anna, I kind of expect to see you a live picture of you Zwifting with your headband on and an ugly Christmas sweater. If you could do
Sweater.
that'd be so cool. Just for social.
I might do that. Yes, I will. I'll try and find it and look exactly the same and rock that deep dish front wheel. So we are seeing ZWC. It looks like they're coming in close to the finish now. So they, again, have absolutely rocked out this team time trial. And looks like we'll be seeing them in the Prem division.
That is just really well deserved. So they're not too far from the finish now. They've had a sensational season. They've ridden so well together as a unit. They seem to communicate really well. They ride in a very great formation, very efficient formation as they go, and they absolutely deserve this overall win that they all get, not only today, but in that overall. So they did go into today with an unassailable lead ahead of Relentless, so they just had to turn up. A bit of a yo there from IKD, and I have learnt
I
that
think they're
there are some
using that.
functional shortcuts. There's some keyboard shortcuts, Anna, that you can use if you don't want to take your hand off to find that button down the bottom, F1 through to F10. And if you head over to Zwift Insider, you'll be able to find all those shortcuts. What's happening here? There are too many riders. We've had a bit of a late overtake, it looks like. Or is there only...
It's like
there's more
ZWC just came out TBR, yeah. But what I'm interested in is I think ZWC is actually using that hand signal. I thought they were saying hi to you, Katie, but I actually think
what a shame.
they put up their hand when their turn is done, which is amazing. That means they're not even. I think they're doing this because I've said it twice. Let's just watch this because what I think potentially is because they've got Japanese riders and Australian riders. I could be wrong, maybe because they're close to the end. But I've seen a couple of hand signals from them, and maybe someone from ZWC can let us know because they are coming near the end because they're probably just putting in a huge effort now. But I've seen a few of them, and I just wonder maybe because they've got different languages on the team, they could have been using that hand signal. So if anyone knows, let me know because that would be amazing. That would be the first time I've kind of seen that used as a strategy.
Well, it has brought up the fact that communication can be hard when different languages are spoken. They go over the finish line there for Team ZWC APAC. I think it'll be a very successful outing, not just today, but also for the overall as the other teams start rolling in. But ZWC APAC, we have to remember that they started last because they were the overall leaders. So any teams coming in now, that means they've actually passed them out on course. So they've had a bit of a run today, Anna, because not only have they had to focus on that overall, but also doing clean passes. Relentless there, they're down to 4 riders. Ottstott, he was pretty good in last week's scratch race.
And a shout out to Henri Guy there. So he was a team manager of Relentless. So he's had to step up and start racing, even though he was the team manager. So great to see him out, joining his sort of the remnants of his team and seeing them close out this league. So that's really good to see him step up because it was, I think, a tough couple of weeks.
And I believe that they're a pretty good young development team now too. So even though it was a bit of a shock when we had a defection of a couple of riders, I do believe that they've got a really solid squad that can do well in the seasons to come. So we've got McGiven here, AAVF, and this is the B category for the men. So we don't have their split times at the moment, but there's some pretty tight racing on the table for them as well. A lot of the races, Anna, it's not just about taking that overall victory and the overall victory today, but a lot of them are kind of battling against what have almost become arch nemesis throughout the community for their place on the table. So it looks like the Big Ring 52, well, yes, it is a big ring. They have gone through the 26K mark at the top in 35.01. They've got a pretty solid lead of 28 seconds over the Evo Barbarians, Aeroforce. They're only a couple of seconds back, so we've got a pretty tight race for second there. AAVF, they still have 5 riders. They are coming to the finish now, so not too far to go for them. Pretty solid time too, riding over 40k an hour for the most part. So remembering it's 36k, so to finish that in just over 50 minutes is pretty quick.
Yeah, I did just want to, we just saw that team up before. They did have a lot of black kits. So that black kit, I think, is the metric or imperial, someone who's watching will be able to tell me, 160 kilometres, so 100 miles in game in one ride. You get a black kit that has a little 100 on it. And there's a little sort of silver grey kit if you ride 100 kilometres. So yeah, just some... give an extra ride on to someone you see out there who's got one of those kits, because that's been a big ride and big time in the saddle to get that special black outfit.
And we often see over the Christmas period that a lot of people take a bit of time off work and put in some pretty big epic rides on Zwift. So if you see some of your community league mates out there, maybe jump in for a ride. Actually, Anna, we had the Masters National Championships on the road here in Australia a week or two ago, and I saw a photo on Instagram of a heap of the Zwift Community League racers meeting up for the first time in real life and racing against each other in real life. And they all got a photo together, and I thought that was pretty cool because you would not expect it. It's like meeting an Instagram friend. You feel like you know them, but the reality is you actually haven't met them. So it's pretty cool to see them be able to meet up in real life and race as well.
Oh, I think that's awesome. And I mean, actually, we've just decided with our team, when the borders open up, we're going to set the goal of doing a team entry into Ride Across America. And I think you just sort of, you've spent so much time sort of virtually chatting away on Discord, and then you think, oh, let's do something in real life. And it'll be great when all these borders do open up and we can all meet each other in person and go for some epic sort of rides in the real world as well.
Well, we're looking at Vision APAC here. They're about midway on the table where they've been consistently this year. They're down to 4 riders, but they are coming to the finish. Again, this arch over the road, that is where we know the finish line is. There isn't actually a physical arch in the team time trial here, but there is a line across the road, and we can see the arch on the top right of screen. MRR coming across here in dribs and drabs, but that just means they've been pushing all the way to the line, which is good to see the commitment there.
Yeah, so it's been some pretty decent racing here in this Division 1B2. Looks like TBR 50T has taken that out, but only just. I mean, 28 seconds, 29 seconds back was Evo Barbarians, and Aero Force was 4 seconds off them. So what we've seen as these series progresses, as the series progressed, is these sort of team time trial times have been so close together, and it's because people are off there practicing, they're just becoming more cohesive as a unit, they're working better together, and you can just see that in the reflection of way better performances in race 10 versus race 2 team time trial weeks and weeks ago.
So we've got a split screen here because we're watching the different leagues as they come in and they finish. What a great series it has been this 10 weeks. It's a big commitment for the individuals, but also for the team management. And I know a lot of the racers have had some goals to step up to the next division or the next league, perhaps. But a lot of them have also just been here to gain some experience and to learn how to race in the Zwift world. So, Anna, we've seen a pretty good show across all the leagues. Some very tight races on the tables overall.
Yeah, I mean, coming down to that AHDRL and the Ace of Cakes in the women's field, that's sort of summed up the league for me, with just strong performances right to the end as we see this TBR 46 tooth team coming through, all in green, all Christmassy, and they're about to pass, I think, the AHDR choppers. And it just shows, 10 weeks is a long time to have racing every single week, but what I've been so impressed with is that all these teams have got, 5, 6 riders on the start line. They're turning up to the scratch races week after week. And even if they're not vying for the top spot, there are so many little, internal battles going on that everyone's just highly motivated and pushing themselves. You can see here Gilmer, 178 beats per minute. That's not easy. That's really, really pushing it. And, it's kudos to these guys. It's right down to the wire, and they're doing a great job.
And they certainly deserve a bit of a break over Christmas. We've got a bit of an overtake happening here. So far, everybody's been pretty respectful. We've had a few little giggles at some of the comments. The ladies, weren't they terribly polite? Thank you so much. Lovely overtake. I appreciate that. I think there's a lot of room in the community league for that. But, conversely, Anna, we've also seen some almost fisticuffs, both in the scratch racing and in the team's time trial, where we know that they're taking it really seriously.
Yeah, and I think when your heart rate is up, like we see here at 181, you just can't really shield your emotions very well, and that's when we see, a bit of keyboard warrior action happening and some
Yeah,
little
there is
expletives
no
dropped.
emotion
And
shielding when your heart rate is so high. There's not enough blood going to your brain to regulate the emotions. I think another very impressive get up here, a full team worth of ugly Christmas sweaters. Good on the Aussies. I mean, I think you have to wear your ugly Christmas sweater in game because you can't actually wear it in Australia at the moment. I mean, like you said, I'm in Brisbane and it's 100% humidity and over 30 degrees Celsius. So this is the closest I think we get to that white Christmas dream that the television and movies make look so dreamy.
I mean, it's an interesting Christmas sweater though because it's short sleeve, so it's sort of maybe I'll find a Christmas sweater and just cut the sleeves off and rock it like these guys are, like a short sleeved, winter sweater. I like it. It could be
I
quite a new
wonder
look.
if, when they go up Road to Skype, up to Zwift, whether they maybe get a long sleeve when they head into the snow there. That would be quite handy.
Oh yeah, little hat on. I mean, what I'd like to say is a sleigh going around. Is that too much? I don't know. It's sort of imagine this team time trial.
Sorry
Yeah,
to cut
imagine
you off.
these
I was
guys.
going to say that if you head up to Ven Top, I believe you might see Santa and his reindeers cruising around. I mean, it'll take you a couple of hours to climb up there, but
It's a
it might
commitment.
be worth it. Yeah.
Because imagine these team time trial guys just dragging a sleigh behind them. I mean, it's not going to be great for aerodynamics, but man, it would look cool, and they'd get a lot of Christmas points. It would just look awesome.
If they could do it without actually being an aerodynamic drag, I mean, that could be quite cool. Maybe the more power they put out, the more presents they deliver. I mean, this sounds like a really great idea. I'm not sure why they don't use our brainstorming sessions to improve in game. I mean,
Exactly.
are the right people not listening at it? I don't know.
I don't think so. I mean, come on, guys, let's get some sleighs behind them. But I am intrigued by that Ven top. I didn't know that there was a Santa up there, so that might be my next week's activity. It's how many times have you done that climb? I've done it once. It's very hard.
Yeah, I've only done it once. I actually did it with a community group, and they made me pay for it. About halfway up, I thought, thank goodness I have a crew doing it with me. Otherwise, there is absolutely a question mark over whether I would have made it to the top or not. So we're seeing all of the riders finish up here. And, whether it was the A division, the Bs, the Cs, and I think that we can say across the board, it has been an absolutely sensational week of riding. Series of riding, pardon me, not just this week.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Of course, we're in week 10. Sorry, everyone's like, we've been racing for 10 weeks. We want the credit here. So let's take a look at the overall standings because we had some pretty tight races at the beginning of today. So we'll take a look at the results from today first, and then we can see how the series washed up overall in the league. So let's take a look at the Women's APAC Division 1. The Ace of Cakes, they took the win today, and in stomping fashion, might I say, ahead of Zed's Son. Aero Flyers, they're a minute 40 back in third. The Devil Kittens in fourth. AHDRL Bombshells, they came in fifth. The AHDRL Fluffy Buns in sixth, and Cryogen Valletta taking out seventh.
And looking at Division C, another HDRL team, We Ate the Cake, took it over TBR Smile-Ons. That was a huge battle for tonight, so congrats to AHDRL for taking that out. The Caffeines in the third place, the Fiery Kittens in fourth, the AHDRL Spin Mafia in fifth, with the Comets in sixth, Evo Flux in seventh, the AHDRL Degenerates in eighth, the Donuts in ninth, and then the Cruzettes rounding out in 10th.
And if we head over to the men's APAC Division 1, Team ZWC Attack, textbook, beautiful ride there. They won by a minute 13. What a ride to finish the series. Ahead of Relentless and Evo Savages, who were only 1 second apart. They're in second and third. Deepak in fourth. In fifth, we had Smooth as Zed's Son, the Aeromasters in sixth. Wes 2 in seventh. Cryogen Super Banyeres in eighth. R3, Bowie, yes, we got a few lyrics in there. They are in ninth. The Big Ring 54 Tooth, they took out 10th spot.
And looking at Division B, TBR 50T in first, with Evo Barbarians in second, Aero Force coming in third, with Dirty Sprockets in fourth, Cryogen Etnas in fifth, Vision APAC sixth, Z Sundries in seventh, TBR 49 T in eighth, Churn Bikeworks in ninth, and I haven't even seen this team before, TV Gunga in 10th.
Oh, they just put that in there to make it difficult for us to pronounce, I think. Div C for the men's APAC, we've got the Big Ring 46 tooth, and I might add it took me approximately 8 weeks to figure out the TBR for Big Ring, but we got there. In second, MRRC, if somebody can tell me what that acronym stands for, that'd be great. The AHDR Choppers were in third, Cryogen Alto de Latros in fourth, Cryogen LT in fifth, and the AHDR Chargers in sixth. All right, now let's take a look at the overall league standings. They're not updated. Oh, there they are. 2 points they ended up winning by. The Ace of Cakes. Massive congratulations to them. They take the league victory ahead of the Aero Flyers on 189 points. Z Sun, they round out the podium in third. BRT Devil Kittens in fourth. The Fluffy Buns and the Bombshells in fifth and sixth. Huge representation from AHDR. L in this category, the Cryogen Valletta in seventh, and the BRT Hellfire Kittens, they finished in eighth. So tight all the way to the very finish, but a great result for the Ace of Cakes. So let's take a look at
Division
the C, Anna.
C. AHDRL, we ate the cake. They took it out 1 point between them and TBR Smile On. So absolute amazing battle, that whole series between those two. So kudos to both those teams. It's just been amazing to commentate on. BRT Fiery Kittens in third, AHDRL Caffeines in fourth, the AHDRL Comets in fifth, the Spin Mafia in sixth, the Cruzettes in seventh, Evo Flux 1 in eighth, CMA Queen Bees in ninth, and the AHDL Degenerates in 10th.
Degenerates, I love that name, and I put it out to all of the teams. Let's see what you can come up with for next season. Men's APAC Division 1 overall, the league standings, the standout team, Team ZWC Attack. What a brilliant ride in second, Relentless, and what an incredible job they did rallying toward the end of the season, and I'm excited for what that young team has planned for the next year. In third, we had DPAC. They weren't too far back, and then Evo Savages in fourth, Aero Masters in fifth, Wes number 2 in sixth, WTRL Pioneers, they were in seventh, Team ZWC Blast, they are essentially, I guess, a feeder team, they were in eighth, so great result for them, Smoother Z Sun in ninth, and the Big Ring 54 Tooth rounded out the top 10.
And Division 1B, TBR 50T led it out, 193 points, with Aero Force in second, 189, and the Evo Barbarians with a great showing tonight at 175 points in third. Cryogen Etnas in fourth, the Dirty Sprockets in fifth, Vision APAC in sixth, AHDR Blowflies in seventh, Z Sundries in eighth, Churn Bikeworks in ninth, and the Velo Club Melo Sable, presented by Cycling Tips, in 10th.
Right, let's look at this Div C for the APAC. The Big Ring 46 Tooth, they took the win quite resoundingly there. Good on them, ahead of the AHDR Chances and then the Choppers in second and third to round out the podium. MRRC, which I think stands for Melbourne something, they are in fourth. TT1 Carbos in fifth. Cryogen LT in sixth. Cryogen Alto de Latros in seventh. The AHDR Chargers, they came in eighth. The Big Ring 47 Tooth took 9th spot, and rounding out that top 10 in the Division C, Cryogen Mount Hotham, some mountain goats in that crew, I would imagine, with that name. They rounded out the top 10. Well, Anna, it has been a pretty sensational 10 weeks here at the WTRL racing. The community leagues have just brought some really impressive rides, not just from individuals, but also from teams that week in, week out have turned up, have strategically, they've impressed. And what can I say today? A lot of them had their lovely, ugly Christmas sweaters on. So big points for that.
Yeah, I think everyone just brought their A game today, both in what they were looking like, the equipment they used, and then also just their performances. So I think, yeah, they've just done themselves proud, finishing off these 10 weeks really strong. I mean, knowing for myself, I've raced this league too. It is full on. You get nervous, you think about the race for ages, you turn up, you put everything out there, you recover, and then you do it all again the next week. So, really great work from everyone out there who has just finished off so strong.
And a very big thank you to all of the riders who turned up to entertain us week in and week out, as well as the team managers, of course, and a very big shout out to the production crew at WTRL who make this happen, and to Nathan at Zwift Community Live. You guys make the magic happen, so thank you very much. Make sure you head over to WTRL.racing to keep abreast of everything that's going on. We do have a bit of a video to show you that we'll round out with tonight. But from Anna and myself, I think a very Merry Christmas. Thanks for the ride in 2020, and we'll see you bright and early January 2021.